Inside the Obsidian Room, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, the silence was suffocating. A single fork striking porcelain would have echoed like a gunshot. Every eye was locked on Table 1, the domain of Arthur Penhaligon, the ruthless CEO of Apex Global. His 7-year-old daughter was screaming sharp, piercing, and terrifying, a sound that froze the staff in place. Nannies had walked out. Therapists had failed. And now his fiancée was yanking at the child's arm, trying to drag her away. Then a waitress in worn sneakers, her apron stained and frayed, stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't plead. She did one simple, unexpected thing, something that made a billionaire stop cold and quietly altered the course of the night. No one knew then that this waitress carried a secret powerful enough to shatter everything. The dinner rush at the Obsidian Room was a perfectly timed ballet of tension and consequence. For Nora, it was just another shift-dodging elbows, steadying scalding plates of sea bass, and pretending not to hear the city's elite speak down to her. She tugged at her apron, concealing its unraveling hem. She needed this night. Her landlord, Mr. Henderson, had been clear: rent by Friday, or she and her ailing mother would be out on the street. "Table 1 is coming in," the floor manager, Gillette, whispered sharply, wiping sweat from his brow. "Look alive." "It's Penhaligon." The mood shifted instantly. It wasn't admiration, it was fear. Arthur Penhaligon wasn't merely wealthy. He was a force. He owned half the skyline. But tonight, the murmurs weren't about markets or mergers. They were about the small girl clutching his hand and the striking blonde woman striding beside him. Arthur looked worn down. His tailored suit cost more than Nora earned in 5 years, yet he carried the exhaustion of a man at his limit. Isabella walked at his side, a socialite whose smile looked rehearsed to perfection. Trailing behind them was Lily, 7 years old, swallowed by a dress too rigid and formal. Her eyes darted around the room in pure panic. "Sit, Lily," Isabella snapped under her breath, "and stop fidgeting. The press is outside." Lily didn't sit. She hovered beside the velvet chair, hands shaking. Watching from the service station, Nora recognized the signs instantly. This wasn't misbehavior. It was overwhelm. The clatter of silverware, the layered conversations, the jazz humming through the air, everything was crashing in on the child at once. Sparkling water. "Tasting menu." "Now," Arthur ordered without lifting his eyes from his phone. 7 minutes later, everything unraveled. A busboy at a nearby table dropped a tray of wine glasses. The crash was explosive. Lily didn't flinch, she collapsed. A scream tore from her, raw and primal, the sound of genuine terror. She fell to the floor, hands clamped over her ears, rocking violently. The restaurant fell dead silent. "Lily, stop it!" Isabella hissed, gripping the girl's shoulder. "Get up, you're embarrassing Arthur." The screams grew louder. Lily kicked out, her heel striking Isabella's shin. "You little brat!" Isabella gasped, her polished composure cracking as she yanked Lily's arm. "I said get up." Arthur rose from his chair, helpless. "Isabella, stop. She's having an episode." "She's spoiled," Isabella shouted back, forgetting who was watching. "She needs discipline." Gillette rushed over, pale with panic. "Mr. Penhaligon, perhaps a private room? She won't move." Arthur snapped. "Can't you see? She's frozen." Whispers spread. Phones came out. This was turning into a public disaster. Nora didn't hesitate. She didn't ask permission. She didn't think about policy. She grabbed a thick linen napkin and a glass of ice water, but she didn't approach the table. Instead, she went straight to the light panel near the kitchen and dimmed the entire section by half. Then she walked calmly toward Table 1. "Get away!" Isabella snapped. "We don't need a waitress." Nora ignored her. She ignored Arthur. She knelt on the floor beside the screaming child. She didn't touch Lily. She didn't speak. Nora draped the linen napkin over her own head, forming a small tent, and sat cross-legged beneath it, silent, still. Lily's screams faltered. The rocking slowed. Her eyes fixed on the strange sight, a grown woman sitting quietly under a napkin. The absurdity broke the panic loop. Slowly, Nora lifted one corner of the cloth and met Lily's gaze. No smile, no words. Just 3 fingers. Then 2, then 1. The napkin fell closed again. The room was dimmer now, quieter. The frightening woman still stood above, but this odd, calm presence was down on the floor, safe inside a tiny tent. Lily crawled forward. The restaurant watched in breathless silence. Arthur Penhaligon stood frozen, mouth slightly open. Lily lifted the corner of the napkin. Nora leaned in, her voice barely audible. The world gets too loud sometimes, doesn't it? It's okay to hide. Lily nodded, her lower lip trembling. I have a secret base, Nora whispered, widening the tent. There's no noise in here. Lily crawled beneath the napkin beside her. For 30 seconds, a billionaire's daughter and a struggling waitress sat huddled together under white linen on the floor of the most expensive restaurant in the city. The screaming had completely stopped. Nora gently lifted the napkin away. Lily sat calmly, breathing even. Nora stood, smoothed her apron, and faced a stunned Arthur. She's sensory defensive, sir, Nora said evenly, her heart racing. The crash overwhelmed her auditory processing. Being grabbed makes it feel like her skin is on fire. She needed a reset. She turned to Isabella, whose face burned with rage and humiliation. And never restrain a child mid-panic. It teaches them that safety is something they have to fight for. Nora walked back toward the kitchen. The silence lingered for 5 long seconds. Then, for the first time in the history of the Obsidian, the room was still vibrating when the clapping began. It started with a single pair of hands, brief and uncertain, and ended just as quickly under Isabella's razor-sharp glare. But it was too late. Something fundamental at table 1 had shifted, and there was no undoing it. Arthur Penhaligon studied his daughter. Lily sat quietly in her chair, sipping water, her hands calm and steady. Then he glanced at Isabella, fingers flying across her phone, already trying to control the narrative online. Finally, his gaze moved to the kitchen door where the waitress had vanished. "Who is she?" Arthur asked. Gillette hovered nearby, pale and nervous. "Just a temp, Sir Nora. She's new. I apologize for her informality. I'll have her fired immediately for speaking to your guests like that." Arthur's eyes narrowed. "If you fire her, I'll buy this building and evict you by morning." Gillette swallowed hard. "Understood, sir." Arthur nodded once. "Bring her here after we eat." The rest of the meal passed in a haze. Arthur couldn't stop watching Lily. Normally, after an episode, she would shut down for days, no eating. No sleeping, no response. Tonight she twirled pasta on her fork. She even pointed at the chandelier and whispered something to her doll. It felt unreal. A miracle dot in the kitchen, Nora stood near the dish pit, struggling to breathe. "You are completely insane," her coworker Ben whispered as he stacked plates. "You lectured Isabella freaking Vance. Do you know who she is?" Nora scraped leftovers into the bin, her hands shaking. "Her father owns half the tabloids. She's going to ruin you." "I couldn't watch it," Nora said quietly. "They were torturing that poor girl." Ben snorted under his breath. "Well, I hope it was worth it. Gillette looks like he's about to have a heart attack." 20 minutes later, the summons came. Nora walked back to table 1 with her chin lifted, even as her mind raced. She counted the cash in her savings jar. The days left before eviction. 3. Arthur Penhaligon stood as she approached, taller in person than he ever looked on television. "What's your last name?" he asked. "Kingsley, sir, Nora Kingsley." He paused. "Where did you learn that trick?" "The napkin," she said after a moment. "My younger brother? He had similar struggles. We couldn't afford therapists, so I learned how to help him survive the world." Arthur took her in the worn shoes. The exhaustion etched into her face, and beneath it all, an unyielding strength. "Lily has gone through 6 nannies in 4 months, Arthur said quietly. "The best agencies in London and New York, none of them could stop an episode in under an hour. You did it in 30 seconds. Isabella scoffed. "Oh, please. It was a parlor trick. She embarrassed us." She saved us, Arthur corrected coldly. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a checkbook, wrote quickly, and slid the paper across the table. This is for tonight. A tip Nora's breath caught. $5,000. Enough to pay Mr. Henderson, enough to buy her mother's heart medication for 3 months. I can't accept this, sir. It's too much. Take it, Arthur said evenly. He placed a sleek black business card on top of the check. My driver will be outside tomorrow at 10. Come to my estate. We need to discuss a more permanent arrangement. Arthur! Isabella shrieked. You cannot be serious. She's a waitress. She smells like garlic and desperation. Nora's hand hovered. Pride told her to walk away. Reality, her mother, the eviction notice told her otherwise. She took the check. Thank you, sir. She turned to Lily. Bye, Lily. Remember the tent. Lily looked up and gave a small, shy wave. As Nora walked away, she felt Isabella's stare burning into her back. She knew, deep down, that the $5,000 wasn't just a tip. It was a declaration of war. By morning, her world collapsed. Nora woke in her cramped Queens apartment to furious pounding on the door. Mr. Henderson stood outside, eyes heavy with regret as he handed her a notice. I'm sorry, Nora, I have to evict you. Effective immediately. You have 24 hours. What? She clutched the door frame. I have the money. I got a huge tip last night. I can pay you right now. It's not the rent, he said quietly. The city health inspector and building authority called this morning. They found violations, your unit specifically. They threatened to condemn the whole building if you don't leave. They knew your name. Someone powerful wants you out. The blood drained from her face. Isabella, it had to be. I understand, Nora whispered. She closed the door and slid down against it. Her mother coughed from the bedroom. They had nowhere to go. And if Isabella was this ruthless, Nora would probably lose her job by noon. Her phone buzzed. A message from Gillette. Don't come in. You're fired. And don't use me as a reference. Tears burned her eyes. She was being erased. Nora checked the time. 9:45 a.m. Arthur Penhaligon's driver was due at 10. What had been a job interview was now something else entirely, a lifeline. If she didn't get that position, she and her mother would be homeless by nightfall. She wiped her face, put on her best white blouse, and packed her mother's medication into her bag. Mom, she called softly, I'm going out. I think I found us a new place. She stepped onto the curb just as a black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to a stop. The window lowered. Miss Kingsley? Yes, Nora said, clutching her bag. Mr. Penhaligon is waiting. She climbed in. As the car pulled away, she noticed a black SUV parked down the street. A man inside watched her, speaking into his phone. Nora wasn't just stepping into a new job. She was stepping into a snake pit for her mother and for the little girl inside her who only wanted a quiet place to hide. Nora was done backing down. The Penhaligon estate, known as Blackwood, was not a home. It was a fortress, masquerading as a French chateau. As the Rolls-Royce crunched along the gravel drive, Nora lifted her eyes to the limestone facade. It was stunning, cold, and severe, uncannily similar to the man who owned it. Her fingers tightened around her handbag. Inside it was everything she had left, her ID, her mother's medication, and the empty space where her house keys used to be. The word from her landlord still burned in her mind. Evicted. If she failed this interview, she wouldn't just return to waitressing. She would be returning to a homeless shelter. The butler opened the car door. Mr. Calloway looked as though he'd been starched along with his collar. Follow me, Miss Kingsley. Mr. Penhaligon is in the library. You are late. I was picked up at 10, Nora stammered. Mr. Penhaligon's time is currency, Calloway replied flatly. Do not waste it. He led her through corridors lined with portraits of stern ancestors staring down in judgment. The house was unnervingly silent. No music, no laughter. No sound of a child at play. It felt like a museum where touching the exhibits carried consequences. They stopped before towering mahogany doors, which Calloway pushed open. The library was immense, packed with books that appeared untouched. At its center sat Arthur Penhaligon behind a desk the size of a small car. But he wasn't alone. Isabella lounged on a leather sofa like a predatory bird, sipping espresso. In front of the desk stood three women in rigid formation immaculate navy suits, hair pulled into tight buns, leather folios clutched like shields. They looked like soldiers. Nora glanced down at her plain white blouse and black slacks. She felt painfully underqualified. Well, Isabella drawled, sarcasm dripping from every word, the miracle worker has arrived. Arthur, are we really doing this? These women have PhDs in child psychology. She serves appetizers. Arthur ignored her. His gaze settled on Nora. Take a place in line. Miss Kingsley. Nora stepped beside the third woman, a severe-looking type who smelled faintly of antiseptic. This is a practical interview, Arthur said, rising from his chair. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes deeper than the night before. Lily is in the solarium. She has refused breakfast, refused to get dressed. In 2 hours, the board of directors will arrive for luncheon. Lily must be presentable. He pointed to the first woman. Miss Gable, you're first. 10 minutes. Miss Gable nodded with confidence. I've managed tantrums for the royal family of Sweden. This will be simple. She marched out. Arthur waited, tapping his pen against the desk. 5 minutes later, a piercing scream tore through the hallway, the same terrified shriek Nora remembered from the restaurant. Miss Gable returned, hair slightly askew, face flushed. The child is difficult, she said stiffly. She bit me. Next, Arthur said coldly. Miss Halloway went in and returned 3 minutes later, shaking her head. She's throwing porcelain figurines. It's unsafe. The third woman scoffed. Amateurs? She strode out and lasted the longest. 8 minutes. When she returned, she was drenched. She turned the hose on me, the woman spat, wiping water from her glasses. That child doesn't need a nanny. She needs a boarding school for the criminally insane. Arthur's expression hardened. His jaw twitched. Get out, all of you. You will be compensated for your time. The three highly qualified women filed out, muttering about impossible standards. Silence settled over the room. Arthur turned to Nora. Your turn. Isabella laughed. Oh, I have to see this. Go on, waitress. Go get bitten. Nora said nothing. She set her bag on a chair. Then she slipped off her shoes. What are you doing? Isabella asked, wrinkling her nose. The floors are marble, Nora replied calmly. Shoes click. The sound echoes. If she's in a high-sensory state, heels on stone sound like gunfire. You're approaching her like an invasion. She paused. I'm going in as a ghost. In her socks, she left the library. Arthur rose. I want to watch. He and Isabella followed quietly toward the solarium. The solarium was a glass-walled room filled with exotic plants, humid, bright, overwhelming. In the corner, behind a large fern, Lily was curled into herself, clutching a porcelain doll, her breathing uneven. A garden hose lay nearby, water still dripping onto the floor. Nora didn't approach. She didn't call Lily's name. Instead, she walked to the center of the room and sat on the floor with her back to the child. From her pocket, she took out a small notepad and pen. She began to draw. Scratch, scratch. The steady rhythm sliced through the silence. Lily's crying slowed, then stopped. Nora tore out the page and folded it into a paper airplane. She tossed it straight up. It looped and landed on a broad monstera leaf. She drew another, folded it, and threw it again. This one landed closer to the fern. That's it, Isabella whispered from the doorway. She's playing with trash. She, Arthur hissed. Lily peeked out from behind the fern, her eyes fixed on the paper plane near her foot. Slowly, she reached out and picked it up. She unfolded it. Inside was a crude drawing, a stick figure girl fighting a dragon. The dragon was made of loud noises. Lily looked at Nora's back. Nora didn't turn around. Another plane flew. This one landed in Lily's lap. She unfolded it. The drawing showed the girl and the stick figure waitress sitting beneath a giant umbrella, Safe from the noise dragon, Lily stood. She walked over and sat down behind Nora, back to back. The hose was because she yelled, Lily whispered. I know, Nora whispered back, still facing forward. Yelling is the worst. I don't want to wear the blue dress, Lily admitted. It scratches my neck. Okay, Nora said gently. What if we wear the white? What looked like a simple dress choice was about to become a quiet war. And we can wear it inside out, Nora said gently, so the tag doesn't touch your skin. Lily paused. Inside out? It's a new fashion trend, Nora added smoothly. Very exclusive. Lily giggled, a small, rusty little sound. Okay, Lily agreed. Nora stood and offered her hand. Lily took it. Together they walked past a stunned Arthur and a visibly furious Isabella. We're going to get dressed now, Nora said calmly as she passed Arthur. Then, without breaking stride, she added, And Mr. Penelegan, the blue dress is synthetic tulle. For a child with SPD, that's basically sandpaper. Burn it. Arthur watched them leave and finally exhaled. As if he'd been holding his breath for 5 years? She's manipulating her, Isabella snapped, folding her arms. She's making Lily dependent on her. It's a classic con. She's the first person Lily hasn't screamed at in a month, Arthur replied. She's hired. You can't hire her. Isabella's voice rose, sharp with desperation. You don't know anything about her? I ran a background check this morning. She pulled a folded document from her clutch and slammed it against Arthur's chest. She was evicted this morning. No address. Her mother is sick and uninsured. She's broke, Arthur. She's not here because she cares about Lily. She's here because she needs a roof over her head. She's a gold digger. Just a poor one. Arthur unfolded the papers. He read the eviction notice, the financial report. Then he looked down the hallway where Nora and Lily had disappeared. She didn't tell me, he murmured. Of course she didn't, Isabella scoffed. She's trying to embed herself into your life and siphon your money. Arthur returned to the library, his expression unreadable. 30 minutes later, Nora came back in. Lily sat quietly, dressed in the white gown turned inside out. A sash cleverly pinned to hide the seams. Calmly coloring in a book, she's ready for the luncheon. Nora said. Arthur lifted the eviction notice. Nora froze, her face drained of color. She glanced at Isabella, who was smiling in triumph. Is this true? Arthur asked evenly. Are you homeless as of this morning? Nora swallowed hard. She didn't plead. She straightened her spine. Yes, my landlord evicted us today. He claimed pressure from the city, but I suspect it came from somewhere else. Her eyes flicked briefly to Isabella. But that doesn't change how I treat your daughter. Mr. Penelegan, I need this job desperately, and that means I'll work harder than anyone else you could hire, because I have everything to lose. The room fell silent. Isabella waited for the explosion. Arthur hated liars. You're right, he said slowly. You do have everything to lose. He tore the eviction notice in half. The position is live-in. The East Wing has a guest suite. You and your mother can move in today. I'll send a truck for your belongings. Isabella's espresso cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Arthur, you can't be serious. You're moving her mother in too? Lily needs stability, Arthur said, turning away from her. And Nora needs a home. It's a transaction. Then he turned back to Nora, his eyes hard as steel. This is a trial. 1 week. If Lily has a meltdown, if you lie to me again, or if I sense you're using my daughter for financial gain, you'll be out on the street. And I'll make sure you never work in this city again. Nora nodded, her heart pounding. Understood. She had a home. And she had just stepped into a cage with a lioness who wanted her. Destroyed. The first 3 days at Blackwood Manor were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Nora and her mother. Elena Frail but razor-sharp were settled into the East Wing. The luxury was overwhelming, but Nora barely noticed. She was too busy acting as a human shield for a 7-year-old girl. Isabella never raised her voice. Her attacks were precise, surgical. She was a saboteur on Tuesday. Nora found Lily's noise-canceling headphones in the dishwasher, ruined. Isabella blamed the maid on Wednesday. The kitchen ignored Lily's dietary restrictions and served a sauce packed with texture-heavy mushrooms. Triggering a gagging episode, Nora barely de-escalated before Arthur arrived. Nora didn't complain. She countered Dot when the headphones broke. She built a quiet pillow fort inside a closet. When the food went wrong, she taught Lily to inspect meals like a scientist. Turning fear into a game, Lily began to bloom. She made eye contact. She laughed, real laughter, when Nora slipped across the polished floor in socks, Arthur noticed. He found himself lingering at home, watching from doorways as Nora and Lily danced silently through the living room. Headphones on Dot, the ice around his heart was melting, and nothing terrified. Isabella Moore. The climax of the week was the Apex Charity Gala, Saturday night. The Grand Ballroom. 500 of the city's elite, the press, and shareholders. Arthur made it clear Lily had to appear his image as a family man needed repairing after the restaurant incident. "This is the night," Nora told Lily that morning. "We practice. Walk in, wave, smile, accept one flower, and then we escape to the Batcave." "And I can wear my sensory cape?" Lily asked. "The velvet one?" "Yes," Nora promised. The evening dress had been custom-made. Seamless pale blue silk, soft as air. Designed by Nora and a local seamstress she trusted. Paid for by Arthur. Perfect dot at 5 p.m., 2 hours before guests arrived. Nora went to the nursery to help Lily dress. She opened the wardrobe. The blue silk gown was gone. In its place hung a stiff, crinoline-heavy pink dress, scratchy sequins, tight elastic, unforgiving seams. Panic surged in Nora's chest. She searched the drawers. "Nothing, Nora?" Lily asked quietly, sensing the shift. "Where's my soft dress?" "Just a second, sweetie." Nora stormed into the hallway and nearly collided with Isabella, draped in a stunning crimson gown. Wearing a smile that said she had already won, the smile on Isabella's lips never reached her eyes. "Where is it?" Nora asked quietly, keeping her voice steady. "Where is what, dear?" Isabella replied sweetly, "Lily's dress." "The silk one?" "Oh, that thing." Isabella laughed softly. "I sent it to the cleaners. It was wrinkled. I replaced it with something more suitable. A Penhaligon doesn't wear homemade clothes." Nora's jaw tightened. "That pink dress is Dior." "That pink dress is torture," Nora hissed. "The sequins will feel like needles." "She melt down in 5 minutes." "Then you'd better make sure she doesn't," Isabella whispered, stepping closer. Her perfume was overwhelming, heavy, musky, floral, so strong it made Nora's nose itch. "Because if she screams tonight in front of the investors, Arthur will blame you. He'll decide you can't control her when it matters, and you'll be packing your bags by morning." Isabella turned and glided away. Nora checked her watch. 1 hour until the gala. No time to retrieve the dress. No time to make another. She returned to the room. Lily stood frozen, staring at the pink dress in terror. "I can't wear it," Lily whimpered. "It hurts just looking at it." Nora scanned the room, desperate. She needed something soft, seamless, breathable. Her gaze landed on the door to Arthur's closet, connected to the nursery suite. It was a risk, an enormous one. "Lily, wait here." Nora slipped into Arthur's dressing room. It smelled of cedar and expensive cologne. She tore through the rack suits, stiff shirts, nothing gentle enough. Then she saw it. A neatly folded stack of pristine cashmere sweaters and a row of pure silk pocket squares. She grabbed a pair of scissors from the sewing kit tucked into her apron. One flawless white cashmere sweater, clearly never worn. A handful of blue silk handkerchiefs. "Nora." She spun around. Arthur stood in the doorway, a towel wrapped around his waist, fresh from the shower. His eyes flicked to the scissors, the sweater, then back to her. "What on earth are you doing?" he demanded. "Is that my cashmere?" "I need it," Nora said, her voice shaking but firm. "Isabella took Lily's dress?" "Replaced it with sequins." "If Lily wears sequins, she scream. If she wears this, she be safe." "You're cutting up a $2,000 sweater?" Arthur asked, stunned. "I'd cut up the Mona Lisa if it kept her calm," Nora snapped. "Charge me for it." She rushed past him and back into the nursery. Arthur stood frozen. No one spoke to him like that. Nora worked like a magician. She cut the sleeves to make a sleeveless tunic. She used the silk handkerchiefs to form a soft, flowing sash that tied at the waist, hiding every rough edge. It wasn't Dior. It was better deconstructed, intentional. She could put it on, Nora said gently. It's a cloud dress. Lily touched the cashmere. She smiled. At 7 p.m., the ballroom was full. The music thundered, but Nora had fitted Lily with discreet earplugs disguised as pearl earrings. Arthur stood at the base of the grand staircase, tense. Isabella clung to his arm, waiting. I really don't think she's up for this. Arthur? Isabella murmured loudly enough for nearby investors to hear. That new nanny is incompetent. Then the music swelled. Nora appeared at the top of the stairs, holding Lily's hand. Lily wasn't screaming. She wasn't scratching. She descended gracefully in a white cashmere tunic with a blue silk sash, soft, calm, radiant. A winter angel. Arthur looked up. He recognized the sweater. The silk. A slow smile curved at the corner of his mouth. Lily reached the bottom, approached the board chairman, curtsied, and said softly, Welcome to our home. The room melted. Investors smiled. Applause followed. It was a triumph. Isabella looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Nora stood in the kitchen making tea, exhausted to her core. Arthur entered, still in his tuxedo, tie loosened. The sweater will be deducted from your paycheck, he said, though his voice was warm. Fair enough, Nora replied, leaning against the counter. Why didn't you tell me Isabella took the dress? Would you have believed me? Nora asked. Or would it have sounded like the nanny blaming the fiancé? Arthur was quiet. He poured himself a glass of water. You saw the problem. You solved it. You didn't complain. I respect that. He stepped closer. The air between them shifted, charged, unexpected. You saved the night, Nora. I did it for Lily. I know. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed from the east wing. It wasn't Lily. Nora dropped her mug. It shattered. Mom? She whispered. She ran. Arthur followed. They burst into the guest suite. Nora's mother, Elena, lay on the floor, gasping, clutching her chest. Her face was blue. Mom? Nora fell to her knees, checking her pulse erratic. She's having a reaction. Where's your medication? I put it on the nightstand. Elena gasped. The nightstand was empty. The bottle was gone. I took them, Elena whispered. They didn't work. Nora lifted the empty water glass and sniffed. A faint bitter almond scent. Beneath it heavy, musky floral. Isabella's perfume? Arthur was already on his phone. Get a paramedic unit here now. Nora looked up at him, tears streaming. Someone switched her pills. Or tampered with her water. Arthur's gaze dropped to the glass. A smear of crimson lipstick rimmed the edge, the same shade Isabella wore that night. The war had crossed a line. This was no longer psychological. Nora understood with terrifying clarity. Isabella wasn't trying to get her fired. She was trying to eliminate the competition. Permanently, the VIP wing of St. Jude's Hospital was silent, filled with antiseptic and expensive Lila. Arthur Penhaligon sat outside room 402, head in his hands. Inside, Nora held her mother's pale hand. In the chaos of the ambulance, the paramedics had corrected the chart. Her name was Martha, not Elena, and nothing would ever be the same again. The intake nurse's notes were confused and hurried. Doctors had already pumped her stomach. It turned out to be a violent reaction to a concentrated dose of digitalis, a heart medication, but not the one Martha had ever been prescribed. She's stable, Dr. Sterling said as he stepped out of the room. His face was grim. But Mr. Penhaligon, this wasn't an accident. The amount in her system was 5 times the lethal dose for someone her size. If Nora hadn't recognized the symptoms immediately, she was poisoned. Arthur finished, his voice rough like gravel underfoot. It's a police matter now, Dr. Sterling said. Arthur rose and walked into the room. Nora looked up at him, her eyes rimmed red, her face drained of color. She looked small, broken. I have to leave. Nora whispered. I can't stay at Blackwood. It's too dangerous. She came for my mother, Arthur. Next time it'll be me or worse, Lily. You are not leaving, Arthur said. The words landed like a command. If you go, she wins. And if you leave, I lose the only person who has made my daughter smile in 3 years. She almost killed my mother, Nora cried, her voice cracking into hysteria. This isn't a job anymore. It's a death trap. Arthur crossed the room and knelt beside her chair, a posture of submission a billionaire never took. I sent the glass to the lab. I sent the hallway security footage to my private team, not the house staff. I don't trust anyone in the manor right now. Except you. His phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened from worry into something lethal. What is it? Nora asked. Arthur turned the phone toward her. It was a high-resolution still from the hallway camera outside the guest suite. The timestamp reads 7:45 p.m. A figure was slipping into the room, dressed in a maid's uniform, but the shoes were unmistakable. Red-soled stilettos. Isabella, Arthur whispered. She didn't even bother to change her shoes. She thinks she's untouchable. She is untouchable, Nora said bitterly. Her father's a senator. You're a billionaire. People like her don't go to jail. They go to spas in Switzerland until the news cycle forgets. Not this time, Arthur said quietly. But I need you to trust me. I need you to go back to the house tonight? Are you insane? I need you to act defeated, Arthur said, his eyes cold with strategy. Pack your bags. Cry. Let her see you broken. If she thinks you're leaving, she gets sloppy. She make one last move to secure the engagement ring. Nora looked at her sleeping mother. Then at Arthur and at Lily. Lily goes with you to the office tomorrow, she said firmly. I'm not letting her out of my sight. But I'll stay at the house and find proof. Isabella keeps records, Arthur said. She's obsessive about money. If she paid your landlord to evict you, if she bought the digitalis, the receipt will be in her suite. You want me to break into Isabella Vance's room? I want you to destroy her, Arthur replied. By morning, the performance began. Nora returned to Blackwood Manor with puffy eyes and cardboard boxes in her arms. She loudly told Mr. Calloway she was quitting. Isabella lounged on the patio, eating grapefruit. She watched Nora load the trunk of a taxi, her smile sharp with venom. Leaving so soon? Isabella called. I do hope your mother recovers. Old hearts are so fragile. Nora clenched her jaw. She had to sell it. You win, Isabella. I can't fight you. I just want my family safe. Smart girl, Isabella purred. Go back to serving tables. It's what you were born for. Nora climbed into the taxi, but she didn't leave. As the car rounded the long driveway, she ducked down. The driver, one of Arthur's security men, circled back to the service entrance behind the estate. Nora slipped inside through the scullery, dressed in black tech gear Arthur had provided. She became a ghost in the house she had supposedly abandoned. Arthur had given her the master key code. She waited until Isabella left for Pilates at 11 a.m., then Nora entered the Lion's Den, the West Wing suite. The room was a shrine to vanity. Mirrors everywhere. She searched drawers, closets, under the mattress. Nothing. Panic crept in. Isabella would be back within the hour. Nora stopped. Closed her eyes. She relied on memory, on observation honed from years of serving. Isabella was always on her phone or scribbling in a small leather planner kept inside her Hermes bag. But she never took the bag to Pilates. Nora went to the walk-in closet. On the top shelf sat a row of designer bags. She grabbed the Birkin Isabella had used the day before and dug through it. Lipstick, compact, breath mints. Then her fingers found a false lining. Paper. She pulled it free. It wasn't a diary. It was a passport. And the name wasn't Isabella Vance. It read Maggie O'Connell beneath. It was a folded letter from a law firm in the Cayman Islands. Miss O'Connell, the transfer of funds from the Penhaligon charity account is complete. The $4 million have been laundered as requested. We await your arrival on Monday. Nora's breath caught. Isabella wasn't just a jealous fiancée. She was a con artist, a professional grifter who had likely fabricated the senator's daughter story or stolen the identity. She wasn't after status. She was after Arthur's fortune, and then she planned to disappear. Monday was 2 days away. Nora lifted her phone to take a picture. Click, the sound of a door opening downstairs froze her blood. I forgot my yoga mat. Isabella's voice echoed up the stairs. Nora was trapped. The closet had no second exit. Footsteps climbed closer, the sharp click-clack of heels on hardwood. Nora looked up. The ventilation shaft, narrow, dusty, high. She kicked off her shoes, stepped onto the vanity, hauled herself up, pried the grate loose, and pulled herself inside, sliding it back into place just as the bedroom door swung open through the narrow vent slats. She watched Isabella enter the room. Isabella moved straight to the closet, her steps calm and practiced. She reached for the Birkin bag and checked the false bottom. Then she froze. She knew. Isabella pulled out her phone, but she didn't call the police. She dialed a number. "It's me," she hissed. The waitress found the stash. "I don't know how, but the papers are moved. We have to accelerate the timeline. Forget the gala? Take the girl today. I'm burning the house down." Nora lay motionless in the dust of the vent, clamping a hand over her mouth. Isabella wasn't running. She was planning to kidnap Lily for ransom and torch Blackwood Manor to erase the trail. Nora had to act. She couldn't call Arthur. The thick metal ducts killed her signal. She had to get out and reach Lily. She crawled through the ductwork, metal scraping her knees raw, navigating by memory until she kicked out a vent in the basement laundry room. She spilled out, soot-streaked, and sprinted for the garage. The security car was gone. Isabella must have spotted it. A gardener's truck sat nearby, keys in the ignition. Nora didn't hesitate. She stole it. Fishtailing out of the drive as gravel sprayed everywhere, she called Arthur while tearing down the highway toward Apex Tower. "Arthur!" "It's a setup. Isabella is Maggie O'Connell, a con artist. She's coming for Lily now? She's going to burn the house." "I have Lily," Arthur said, calm but tight. "We're in my office on the 40th floor. Security is on high alert. She can't get in here." "You don't understand," Nora screamed over the engine's roar. "She won't use the front door?" "She has an accomplice." "Who's your head of security?" "Garin. He's been with me 10 years. "Is he the one who drove the SUV, who watched me get evicted?" Silence. Then Arthur whispered, "Garin is in the room with us." The line went dead, dotted Apex Tower. The nightmare unfolded in seconds. Arthur turned to Garin, a towering man posted by the door. "Garin, hand me your radio." Garin didn't move. He smiled, cold and mercenary. "Sorry, boss. The retirement package Maggie offered was too good." He drew a silenced pistol. "Up, you and the brat?" "Roof access. The helicopter's waiting." "Don't touch her," Arthur roared, stepping in front of Lily. "Move and I shoot you in the leg," Garin said lightly. "The girl's the ticket?" "Your excess baggage?" Lily began to whimper, hands over her ears, rocking, the stress triggering a full episode. "Shut the kid up," Garin snapped. Nora reached Apex Tower as the fire alarm wailed Isabella's distraction. The lobby churned with chaos as people streamed out. Nora pushed against the tide to the security desk. "I need the 40th floor. Penhaligon's in danger. Elevators are locked down." The guard shouted. Nora scanned the digital schematics. Elevators down. Stairwells clogged. But they're a service lift, the dumbwaiter. System for catering and mail, small, dangerous, manual. She ran to the loading bay and found the shaft, a vertical tunnel of grease and darkness. She grabbed the cables. 40 floors was impossible by strength alone. But she knew the math, counterweight. She spotted a pallet of heavy printer paper, hooked a counter cable to it, and shoved it off the ledge into the basement pit. The pallet dropped. Nora seized the rising cable and clung on as she rocketed upward 10, 20, 30, braking with her feet as she neared 40, friction burning through her sneaker solace. She pried the doors apart and rolled onto plush carpet, gasping. The floor was empty, staff evacuated. Voices carried from the CEO's office. Nora crept forward and peered through frosted glass. Garen had Arthur on his knees. Isabella, clearly arriving via the private helipad, stood nearby, syringe in hand. "Just put her to sleep, Garen," Isabella ordered. "She's screaming too much." Garen moved toward Lily. Nora scanned the room. No weapon, just a waitress. Then she saw the office bar, a high-end espresso machine, a bottle of high-proof brandy, and a lighter on Arthur's desk. Waitress skills, flambe. She grabbed the brandy and a heavy crystal ashtray and kicked the door open. "Hey, Maggie," she shouted. Isabella spun. "You!" Garen swung the gun toward Nora. She tossed the brandy straight up over his head. As he tracked it, she hurled the ashtray with perfect aim. It shattered the bottle midder, drenching Garen in alcohol. "Now, Lily the button!" Nora screamed. Lily, hiding under the desk near the panic button Arthur had once shown her, slammed her fist down. The button didn't call the police. The lines were cut. It triggered the office's emergency lockdown, blast shutters, and the halon gas fire suppression system. Before the gas released, sparks from Garen's muzzle, flash firing, blind ignited the alcohol soaking his suit. Garen erupted in flames, screaming, dropping the gun, flailing. Isabella lunged for it. Nora tackled her. They crashed through the glass coffee table. Isabella was stronger, fueled by rage. She pinned Nora, hands crushing her throat. "You miserable little servant," Isabella shrieked. "I had it all. I was going to be a queen." Nora's vision blurred as she clawed at Isabella's face. Then a small figure appeared behind her. It was Lily. Lily gripped the heavy brass telescope from her father's desk. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She swung with everything she had. Clang, the telescope struck the back of Isabella's head. Her eyes rolled back and she collapsed, unconscious, onto Nora. Nora shoved her off and dragged in air. Arthur was there for one terrifying second. Everything hung in the balance. Then Nora yanked Nora upright, her hands flying to her neck. "Nora, are you okay?" "I'm okay," Nora wheezed. Their eyes snapped to Lily. The little girl let the telescope slip from her hands, staring down at her trembling fingers. Nora crawled toward her and pulled her close. She didn't say good job. She didn't say don't be scared. Instead, she took the linen napkin from her pocket, the one she always carried, and gently draped it over both their heads. "Tent time," Nora whispered, beneath the napkin. Surrounded by chaos, a burning hitman, being doused by sprinklers and an unconscious con artist sprawled on the floor, Lily pressed her face into Nora's chest and sobbed. "It's over," Arthur said quietly, wrapping his arms around the two women who had just saved his life. "It's finally over." The trial of Isabella Vance, also known as Maggie O'Connell, and her accomplice Garen became the media spectacle of the decade. The evidence Nora recovered from the false bottom bag, paired with the testimony of Mr. Henderson, who flipped instantly when faced with prison, was devastating. Isabella was sentenced to 25 years for fraud, attempted kidnapping, and attempted murder. Nora never attended the sentencing. She was too busy packing. 2 months had passed since the attack at the tower. Martha had fully recovered and was now in the garden with Lily, planting tulips. Nora folded her final waitress uniform and placed it into a box. She felt someone watching her. Arthur stood in the doorway. "Calloway says you ordered a moving truck," Arthur said, leaning against the frame. He looked calmer than he had in years. "No tie?" "No tension. It's time," Nora replied, not turning around. "The danger is gone. You don't need a bodyguard anymore? And Lily can have a real governess now, one with a degree." "So that's what you think you are?" Arthur asked. "Just a bodyguard?" "I was a transaction," Nora said, her voice unsteady. "You needed stability. I needed a home." "The contract is over." "The contract was for 1 week," Arthur reminded her. "You've been here 3 months. I overstayed." Nora lifted the box. "I'm going back to Queens. I'm finishing my nursing degree. It's for the best." She tried to pass him. Arthur stepped in her way. "I fired the board," he said suddenly. Nora stopped. "What?" The ones obsessed with image. The ones who judged Lily, I fired them. I'm taking the company private. I want to focus on what actually matters. He gently took the box from her hands and set it down. You're not a waitress, Nora. You're not a nanny. You're the only person who ever saw my daughter as a human being instead of something broken. And you're the only person who ever saw me as a man, not a bank account. He reached into his pocket. Nora's heart slammed. Money? A severance check? Instead, he pulled out a piece of paper dotted with Lily's drawing, the one from the solarium on the first day. The stick figure girl. The stick figure waitress. Both standing beneath an umbrella, safe from the dragon. But now there was a third figure, a tall man holding the umbrella handle. She drew this morning, Arthur said softly. She calls it the family. Tears spilled down Nora's cheeks. Arthur, I can't. People will talk. They'll say I'm just another gold digger, another Isabella. They'll say the waitress seduced the billionaire. Let them talk, Arthur said, stepping closer. He cupped her face, brushing away her tears. Let them talk while we live. I don't care about the world, Nora. This house was a tomb before you walked into it. If you leave, the lights go out again. I don't want the lights to go out, Nora whispered. Arthur kissed her. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was raw, desperate, and real, a promise that went far beyond contracts. It tasted like second chances. Don't go, he murmured. Okay, she breathed. I'll stay. 5 years later, Forbes ran the headline. A new legacy, how Arthur and Nora Penhaligon transformed autism advocacy. Nora never read it. She stood on the deck of their summer house in the Hamptons when the door opened and a 12-year-old girl stepped outside, Lily, headphones on, smiling, an acceptance letter clutched in her hand. I got into the STEM program. Mom, Nora, who had legally adopted Lily 3 years earlier, beamed. I knew it. You're brilliant with codes. Dad's crying in the kitchen, Lily added flatly. He's pretending not to. He's making pancakes and sniffing. Nora laughed as she walked inside. Arthur stood at the stove, flipping pancakes, discreetly wiping his eyes with a towel. Martha sat at the counter stealing blueberries. Healthy and happy, Arthur saw Nora and smiled, a smile of complete peace. She got in. He said, She did, Nora replied, wrapping her arms around his waist. You know, Arthur said, kissing her forehead, I still owe you for that cashmere sweater. Put it on my tab, Nora winked. They didn't build a life on perfection, but on understanding. They learned that love isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about sitting together in the quiet under the napkin until the world feels safe again. And in the end, the waitress didn't just serve the billionaire. She saved him. That's the story of how one act of kindness and a little waitress grit took down a criminal empire and built a family. Never underestimate the person serving your coffee. They might just be the strongest person in the room. If you love this story of karma, romance, and justice, hit the like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. What did you think of Isabella's punishment? Did she get what she deserved? Tell me in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.